and the Lakota swore to protect her with his life. After she whispered, "I'm a virgin, go slow," she arrived in the town quietly, like someone who did not want to be noticed. The bus dropped her near a small road surrounded by open land and old trees. The wind was cold, and the sky looked heavy, as if it was holding stories of its own. She stepped down with a single bag in her hand and looked around. Everything felt unfamiliar, yet strangely calm. This place was nothing like where she came from. Her name did not matter here. In this town, she was just another stranger passing through. That was exactly what she wanted, a fresh start. A place where no one knew her past, her fears, or the things she carried inside her heart. She had learned long ago how to stay quiet, how to keep her eyes low, and how to protect herself by staying invisible. Life had taught her that trust was dangerous and hope could hurt. Still, something inside her pushed her forward, even when her hands shook and her chest felt tight. The town was small, people knew each other. They noticed strangers. She felt their eyes on her as she walked. Not unkind, just curious. She kept moving until she reached a small cafe near the edge of the road. The lights were warm inside, and the smell of coffee drifted out. She hesitated for a moment, then pushed the door open. That was the first time she saw him. He was sitting near the window, quiet and still, like he belonged to the land itself. He had the calm presence of someone who had learned patience the hard way. His dark eyes were observant, not sharp, not judging. He noticed her, but he did not stare. He simply looked, then returned his attention to the cup in his hands. There was something grounding about him, something steady. She ordered a drink and sat at a corner table, keeping her distance from everyone. She wrapped her hands around the warm cup, letting the heat settle her nerves. Her body slowly relaxed, but her mind stayed alert. It always did. Outside, a group of men passed by the cafe, laughing loudly. One of them looked inside and noticed her. His gaze lingered longer than it should have. Her shoulders stiffened. She had seen that look before. It was not friendly. She looked down, hoping he would move on. But the man stepped inside. He walked closer, too close, and said something casual, something that made her uncomfortable. Her heart started to race. She searched the room for help, but didn't know who to trust. Her voice felt trapped in her throat. That was when the man near the window stood up. He didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He simply placed himself between her and the stranger, his posture calm but firm. His presence changed the air in the room. The stranger hesitated, sensing something he could not explain. "Leave," the man said quietly. There was no anger in his voice, no threat, just certainty. The stranger muttered something under his breath and backed away. He left the cafe, and the door closed behind him. The noise outside faded. She realized she had been holding her breath. She let it out slowly, her hands trembling. The man turned to her, keeping a respectful distance. "You're safe," he said. "No one will bother you here." She nodded, unable to find words. Gratitude mixed with fear, because kindness always confused her. She had learned to expect something in return, even when nothing was asked for. But he asked for nothing. He returned to his seat as if nothing had happened. No pride, no demand for thanks, just quiet respect. That stayed with her. Over the next few days she saw him again, always at a distance, at the cafe, walking along the road, speaking to people with calm respect. She learned his name from others. He was Lakota, deeply connected to his roots, living by values passed down through generations. People trusted him. They listened when he spoke. He never approached her unless necessary, never invaded her space. But when trouble came close, he was always there, like a silent shield. She stayed in a small rented room near the edge of town. At night, memories kept her awake. Old fears crept in when the lights were off. She often sat by the window, watching the moon, wondering if starting over was even possible. One evening, as she walked back from the store, she noticed footsteps behind her. Her pulse quickened. She changed direction. The footsteps followed. Before panic could take over, a familiar figure appeared ahead. He had been walking home, but when he saw her face, he understood without words. He walked beside her, matching her pace. The footsteps behind them slowed, then disappeared. She stopped near her place, her chest tight with emotion. "Thank you," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. No one should feel afraid just for walking home. Those words hit her deeper than he knew. From that night on, something shifted. She felt safer, not because the world had changed, but because someone had chosen to stand between her and harm without asking why. She didn't tell him her story. Not yet. Some wounds were too fresh, too painful. But she noticed how he listened when she spoke, even about small things. How he never rushed her. How he respected her silence as much as her words. One evening, They sat outside the cafe as the sun went down. The sky burned with orange and purple. She hugged her jacket around herself. He noticed and offered his scarf, placing it gently beside her instead of around her neck, giving her the choice. That small act broke something open inside her. She realized then that protection was not loud or forceful. Sometimes it was quiet. Sometimes it was simply staying death a bit. She looked at him and wondered how a stranger could feel safer than people she had known for years. She didn't understand it, but she felt it. He looked out at the land, his expression thoughtful. He believed in promises, not spoken lightly. He believed in protecting those who could not protect themselves. It was not a role he chose for praise. It was a responsibility he carried. That night, as she returned to her room, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not loud or overwhelming, just a small, steady flame. And somewhere deep inside, a promise had already begun to form. One that would soon be tested. One that would change both of their lives forever. She did not notice the change at first, but the town slowly began to feel less heavy. The streets no longer felt like traps. The air did not press on her chest as much. Fear was still there, sitting quietly in the back of her mind, but it no longer controlled every step she took. She began to move differently. Her shoulders relaxed a little. Her eyes lifted from the ground more often. These were small changes, but for her they meant everything. She saw him almost every day now. Sometimes it was just a nod from across the road. Sometimes a short greeting outside the cafe. Their conversations were simple. Weather, work, the town. Nothing personal, nothing deep. And yet every word felt safe. He never asked where she came from. Never asked why she was alone, never pushed for answers. That made her trust him more than if he had asked everything at once. He seemed to understand that some stories only come out when the heart is ready. People in town noticed them. They noticed how he always walked on the side closer to the road when they were near traffic, how he slowed his steps to match hers, how his eyes scanned the area without making it obvious. To him, these actions were natural. To her, they were powerful. One afternoon, she stayed longer at the cafe, reading a book she barely understood, because her thoughts kept drifting. Outside, clouds gathered, dark and heavy. When the rain started, it came fast and hard. She hesitated at the door, knowing she had a long walk back. He noticed her pause. "I can walk with you," he said simply. She nodded, grateful but careful. They stepped into the rain together. The road was quiet, washed clean by the storm. Their footsteps splashed softly in the puddles. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable. It felt full, like it didn't need words. As they walked, a truck slowed near them. Her body tensed before her mind could react. He noticed instantly. Without touching her, he shifted slightly closer, his presence steady and calm. The truck moved on. She let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly, surprising herself. "I get scared easily." He shook his head. "There's nothing wrong with being careful." That night she slept better than she had in weeks. Days turned into routine. She found small work to keep busy, simple tasks, honest effort. It helped her feel human again. Sometimes he would check in, asking if she needed anything. He never hovered, never made her feel watched, just present. One evening, she finally asked him why he helped her. He thought for a moment before answering. "Because I saw someone who needed space and safety. Everyone deserves that." She didn't know how to respond. Her throat tightened. She looked away, blinking fast. No one had ever put her needs so simply, so clearly. Trust did not come all at once. It came in pieces. A shared walk. A quiet laugh. A moment where fear appeared, and he did not disappear. One afternoon, they sat on a bench near open land where the sky seemed endless. The wind moved through the grass like waves. She felt small there, but not weak. She surprised herself by speaking first. "I've never been good at letting people close." He nodded, accepting her words without judgment. "You don't have to rush." That sentence felt like a gift. She told him small things after that. Harmless memories. Favorite foods. Little details that felt safe to share. He listened carefully, as if each word mattered. When he spoke, it was never to impress, only to connect. But trust is fragile, and the past does not stay quiet forever. One evening, as she walked back alone, a familiar voice called out her name. Her heart dropped. She froze. A figure stepped from the shadows, someone tied to a life she had tried to escape. Panic rushed through her veins. Before the situation could grow worse, A voice spoke calmly from behind her. "That's far enough." He stepped into view, his expression steady, his stance firm. He did not threaten. He did not shout. He simply stood between her and the past, unmovable. Frustrated and angry, but gone. Her knees felt weak. She sat down on the curb, shaking. He crouched a short distance away, keeping space, letting her breathe. "You don't have to explain," he said softly. "But you're not alone. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet release." That night, she realized something important. He was not protecting her because he wanted control. He was protecting her because he respected her, and that made all the difference. As days passed, their bond deepened. Still slow, still careful, but stronger. She trusted him not because he promised safety, but because he proved it over and over again. He carried his own history too. Loss, responsibility, traditions that shaped how he lived and loved. He believed that protection was not about force. It was about patience, honor, and choice. One evening, as the sun dipped low, she finally felt brave enough to sit closer, not touching, just near. He noticed, but did not react. He let her decide the distance. Her heart beat fast, but not with fear this time. She realized that trust was not something he took from her. It was something she gave, freely, because she felt safe doing so. And, somewhere between shared silence and quiet understanding, she knew this was only the beginning. What they were building was delicate but real, and soon it would be tested in ways neither of them expected. The days felt quieter now, but not empty. There was a softness to them, like the town itself had learned to slow down around her. Morning light came through her window gently, instead of harshly. The road outside no longer sounded like danger. It sounded like life moving forward. She still carried fear, but it no longer ruled her every thought. He remained steady, just as he always had. He never pushed their connection forward, never pulled away either. He simply stayed. That alone began to heal parts of her she didn't know how to name. One afternoon, they walked toward the open land beyond the town, where the air smelled clean and the sky seemed wider. The path was quiet, and the grass moved softly in the wind. She liked this place. It felt honest. Nothing hid here. They walked side by side, close enough to feel connected, far enough to feel safe. Her thoughts were heavy that day. She had barely slept the night before. Old memories had returned without warning, leaving her tired and restless. He noticed. "You don't have to talk," he said calmly, "but I'm here if you want to." Those words stayed with her as they sat on a fallen log facing the open land. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched, but it didn't feel awkward. It felt like permission. Her hands twisted together in her lap. Her breathing became shallow. She stared ahead, then finally lowered her eyes. "There's something I should tell you," she said quietly. He did not turn toward her. He did not lean in. He stayed exactly where he was, giving her space even in the moment that mattered most. "You don't owe me anything," he replied. She swallowed hard. Her voice shook when she spoke again. "I don't know how to explain it properly. I've never been good at talking about myself." "That's okay," he said. "Take your time." Those 3 words gave her courage. She told him about her fear of being rushed, about how closeness scared her more than loneliness. She spoke slowly, choosing her words carefully, afraid of being misunderstood. Then, barely above a whisper, she shared something deeply personal, something she had never said out loud before. It was not a confession meant to create expectation. It was a request for patience. She waited for his reaction, her heart pounding. He did not change his expression. He did not ask questions that crossed lines. He did not look away either. Instead, he spoke with calm certainty. "Thank you for trusting me with that." She felt tears rise, surprised by the relief those words brought. "You never have to move faster than you want," he continued. "Your pace matters." She nodded, unable to speak. He turned slightly then, but kept a respectful distance. "If I promise you anything," he said, "it's that I will protect your boundaries as much as I protect you." That moment changed everything. She had expected many reactions. Shock, confusion, even rejection. What she received instead was respect. Deep, steady respect. As they walked back, the world felt different. Lighter. Safer. She felt seen, without feeling exposed. From that day on, their bond grew stronger, but it never felt rushed. If anything, it grew deeper because of the care they showed each other. He became even more mindful. If she hesitated, he paused. If she needed space, he gave it without question. If she moved closer, he let it happen naturally. There was no pressure in his presence. Only understanding people in town noticed the difference. They noticed how she smiled more, how her laughter came easier. They noticed how he watched over her without controlling her. It was quiet protection, the kind that didn't need to be announced. But peace never lasts without being tested. One evening, a sudden argument broke out near the cafe. Voices rose. Tempers flared. She felt the familiar tightening in her chest. Crowds made her uneasy. Loud voices pulled her back into memories she tried hard to keep buried. She froze. He noticed immediately. Without touching her, he stepped closer, his voice low and steady. "You're safe. Let's step away." They moved back slowly, creating distance from the noise. Her breathing steadied as soon as the sounds faded. Later, as they sat outside under the darkening sky, she realized something important. Protection was not about strength alone, it was about awareness. He noticed the things others ignored. That night, she spoke again, this time without fear. She told him about how difficult it was to trust people, about how being respected felt new and confusing. He listened without interrupting. "You don't have to change who you are to be safe," he said. "You're already enough." No one had ever said that to her. As weeks passed, she grew braver. She began to face the town with more confidence. She started believing that her boundaries were not weaknesses. They were strengths. He carried his promise quietly. Did not speak of it. He lived it. There were moments when danger brushed close. Old connections tried to pull her back. Words were spoken behind her back. But each time, he stood firm, not aggressively, but with certainty. People respected that kind of strength. One night, as they walked beneath a sky full of stars, she finally realized the weight of what he had offered her. Not ownership, not control. Safety. She stopped walking and looked at him. "Why are you so patient with me?" she asked. He met her eyes calmly. "Because trust grows best when it's not forced." She nodded, afraid that if she spoke, she would cry. In that moment, she understood something she had never known before. Love, real love, did not rush. It waited. It protected. It honored. And he had sworn to do just that. Not with dramatic words, but with every choice he made. She went home that night feeling stronger than she ever had. Not because someone else was protecting her, but because she was finally learning to protect herself too, with the help of someone who respected her journey. What she didn't know yet was that the outside world was watching, and soon his promise would be tested in ways neither of them could avoid. The calm they had built did not disappear overnight. It faded slowly, like light at the end of a long day. At first the signs were small, a strange look from someone in town, a conversation that stopped when she walked by, a feeling she could not explain but felt deep in her chest. She tried to ignore it. She told herself she was safe now, that the past was behind her. That fear no longer had power over her life, but fear has a way of returning quietly, testing the ground before stepping forward. He noticed the change before she said anything. She became quieter again. Her smile faded more quickly. Her eyes searched her surroundings more often. He did not question her. He simply stayed closer, without crowding her, without making her feel watched. One evening, as the sun dropped low and the air turned cold, they walked together near the edge of town. The road was mostly empty. The sky was painted with deep colors, beautiful but heavy. She stopped suddenly. "I feel like something bad is coming," she said softly. He did not dismiss her fear. He had learned long ago that instincts mattered. "Then we'll be careful," he replied. "Together." The next day, trouble arrived without warning. A man from her past appeared near the cafe. His presence alone was enough to make her stomach twist. She tried to stay calm, but her hand shook. Old memories rushed back, fast and loud. The man spoke loudly, drawing attention. He said things meant to unsettle her, meant to pull her back into a life she had escaped. People watched, unsure what to do. Before fear could take control, he stepped forward. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He spoke clearly, firmly, and with authority. He made it known that she was not alone and would not be spoken to that way. The man from her past laughed at first. Then he noticed something in his eyes. Not anger. Resolve. The situation ended without violence, but the message was clear. The past was not done with her yet. That night, she could not sleep. Guilt weighed heavily on her chest. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the floor, thinking of him. Thinking of the risk he was taking by standing beside her. The next morning, she found him outside, fixing a fence near open land. She stood there for a long moment before speaking. "I don't want to put you in danger," she said quietly. "You don't deserve that." He set his tools down and faced her. "You didn't create this," he said. and walking away from someone who needs support is not who I am. But your life, she began. My life has meaning because I choose how to live it, he replied. And I choose to stand here. She had spent so long believing she was a burden that care always came with conditions. His words challenged everything she thought she knew. Still, fear lingered. Over the following days, tension grew. Whispers traveled through town. Some people warned him to stay away. Others looked at her with curiosity or judgment. She felt exposed again, like her safety depended on someone else's courage. One afternoon, she made a decision. She told him she needed space. Not because she didn't trust him, but because she was afraid of losing him. The words hurt both of them, but he respected her choice. I'll give you room, he said gently, but I won't disappear. She walked alone again, feeling the weight of the world press against her. Without him nearby, fear crept back in. Not just fear of danger, but fear of herself. Fear that she would always run when things became hard. One evening she found herself standing near the open land they used to visit. The sky was dark, the wind sharp. She realized how much strength she had gained since arriving in town. She was not the same person anymore. She turned back toward town and saw him walking toward her. Neither of them spoke at first. I tried to protect you by leaving, she said finally, but I think I was just protecting my fear. He listened, his expression calm. And what do you want now? I want to face this, she said. Not hide. Not run. Then I'll stand with you. But you don't have to prove anything to me. The final test came sooner than expected. Late one night, trouble returned, louder and more dangerous than before. Voices rose. Accusations flew. Fear spread through the streets. She was caught in the middle, heart racing, hands shaking. He stepped forward without hesitation. He placed himself between her and harm, his body steady, his voice strong. He did not fight with fists. He fought with presence, with truth, with unwavering resolve. Authorities arrived. The situation was contained. The threat was removed. When it was over, she collapsed onto the ground, overwhelmed by everything she had been holding inside. He knelt nearby, not touching, just close enough for her to feel safe. You're okay, he said softly. You're safe. Not from fear, but from release. From knowing she had survived something that once would have broken her. The town slowly returned to normal. Whispers faded. Life moved forward again. But something had changed forever. She stood taller now. She spoke more clearly. She understood that protection was not about someone standing in front of her forever. It was about someone teaching her she was worth standing for. He had risked himself not because he wanted to be her hero, but because he believed in her strength. As they walked together beneath the quiet sky, she realized that the promise he made was not just about saving her life. It was about helping her reclaim it. The town felt different after everything that had happened. Not louder, not quieter, just clearer. The air no longer carried the same tension. People moved on, as they always did, but something inside her had shifted for good. She woke up one morning and realized she was no longer afraid to step outside. That surprised her. Fear had once decided everything for her. Where she went, how she spoke, who she trusted. Now, fear was still there, but it no longer sat in the center of her life. It had moved aside. She stood by the window, watching the early light touch the land. The sky was soft, calm. For the first time in a long while, she felt present in her own body. Not trapped in the past, not worried about what might come next. Just here, he continued his life the same way he always had. Quiet, steady, grounded. He did not talk about what he had done or the risks he had taken. He did not expect gratitude or praise. To him, protecting someone was not something to announce. It was something to live. They spent more time together now, but nothing felt forced. Sometimes they walked. Sometimes they sat in silence. Sometimes they talked about small things that made the days lighter. She noticed how much stronger she felt around him, not because he stood in front of her anymore, but because he stood beside her. One afternoon they returned to the open land where so many important moments had passed. The grass moved gently in the wind. The sky stretched wide above them. She breathed deeply and smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. I used to think being protected meant being weak, she said quietly, like I couldn't stand on my own. He listened carefully. He always did. But now I understand, she continued. Protection doesn't take strength away. It helps you find it. That's how it's meant to be. She looked at him then, really looked at him. Not as someone who had saved her, but as someone who had respected her enough to let her grow. I don't need you to fight for me anymore, she said honestly. But I want you here. Those words mattered more than any promise. Life moved forward. She found steadier work. She made small friendships in town. She spoke up when she needed to. She learned to say no without guilt and yes without fear. Each step forward felt earned. There were moments when doubt returned. Nights when old memories tried to pull her backward. But now, she knew how to breathe through them. She knew how to ground herself. And she knew she was not alone, even when she chose to face things by herself. He watched her grow with quiet pride. He never tried to guide her path. He trusted her to walk it. One evening, as the town settled into calm, she sat beside him outside the cafe where they had first truly noticed each other. The lights inside glowed warmly. The road was peaceful. "Thank you," she said softly. He glanced at her. "For what?" "Not what I went through. Not what I was afraid of. Just me." He thought for a moment. "You were always there," he said. "You just needed space to step forward." Over time, people stopped seeing her as someone fragile. They saw her confidence, her kindness, her quiet strength. She had built something real here, not by hiding, but by standing in her truth. And he remained the same, steady, respectful, present. One night, under a sky filled with stars, they walked slowly along the road. She felt calm, grounded, and whole. She stopped and turned to him. "I know your promise was to protect me," she said, "but I want you to know something." "You didn't just protect my life," she said. "You protected my right to choose my own pace, my own voice, my own future." His expression softened, but he said nothing. "That's something I'll carry with me always." He finally spoke. Then the promise was worth keeping. They stood there quietly, the night wrapping around them like a blessing. No dramatic words, no grand declarations, just understanding. In the end, their story was not about danger or rescue. It was about respect, about patience, about two people choosing to meet each other without fear or control. She had arrived in town broken and unsure. She stayed because she learned she was stronger than she believed, and he, a man shaped by honor and responsibility, found meaning not in protecting someone forever, but in helping them stand on their own. That was the real promise.